Okay, so I've talked about the teams that won the offseason, but now I want to talk about the teams that have lost the offseason. And there are three teams that I have in mind. Team number one is the Lakers, and it's not because they didn't really lose any players or anything. It's because they didn't do anything. They didn't make any big moves. It's so mind-boggling how this team has LeBron James and Anthony Davis, two of, I think, still the 10 best players in the world. Like, that's an incredible foundation to start off with. And ever since the Russell Westbrook trade, it feels like they've been trying to they've just been working 10 steps behind of where they should in terms of trying to build a championship roster around those guys, where they had the recipe and then they lost it, and it just hasn't been the same since. And I think it was particularly frustrating this offseason where you see both those guys in the Olympics and you're still like, wow, like, these are still two, like, again, it's been said every year, but like, the fact that LeBron is still one of the best players in the NBA, and you see Anthony Davis in that incredible role, he is still so elite. These two guys could easily be the best players on a championship team this coming season, and the fact that the Lakers, like, the fact that they didn't even try to do anything, the fact that they didn't, take any big swings or big gambles, ones that might not make so much sense, ones that might not pan out, but at least you could say, okay, they're at least trying to do something. They're at least trying to put the Lakers, LeBron and AD in particular, in the best positions to succeed. And it just didn't really feel like they made any of those types of moves, any of those types of swings, any of those types of gambles. And I think it's such a disservice to LeBron and AD, considering how elite they still are, and it's so frustrating. And it's why so many Lakers fans are just kind of like, heading into this season. Like, they're like not all that excited because nothing really changed from last year. Second team I had was the Clippers, because they lost Paul George and didn't really replace him in any way. And obviously I understand why they might not have wanted to give Paul George over $200 million, especially when you consider he wasn't so good in these past playoffs. My whole thing with paying Paul George, and why I think they ultimately should have paid Paul George, is just like, what's the alternative? Like, you re-signed Kawhi, so clearly you're still trying to win games. So like, why not bring back Paul George and see if you can make it work somehow? Again, what way that is, I don't know. But the alternative of now just having Kawhi and James Harden, where James Harden's getting older and Kawhi still can't, he was healthy throughout the regular season, and give him credit, but then, right as the playoffs came, he broke down and didn't play in the playoffs. And so like, do you really think that now, like, having one fewer guy you can rely on, in theory, one fewer all-star, is going to help your chances? I know it would have cost a lot of money and luxury tax and second apron, but first of all, Steve Ballmer, richest owner in the NBA, can clearly still pay it. New arena for whatever that's worth. And again, you have Kawhi, so you're clearly trying to compete. So like, why not try and compete as much as possible? Like, the alternative of this team of Kawhi and James Harden, it just doesn't seem as appealing. So I don't really understand what that move was. And the final loser I had of the offseason is the Denver Nuggets, because they lost KCP and didn't get anything from it. They just let him walk in free agency, didn't even try and do a sign and trade deal to maybe get something back from Orlando, just nothing. They just lost one of the best 3-and-D guys in the NBA for nothing. And I know that they believe that they can replace him with a Christian Brown and maybe a couple other guys, whatever, but like, Russell Westbrook, I think, will soak up some of those minutes coming off the bench as an Energizer Bunny, not in the same role, but just like a guy. But I just think when you think of KCP and how valuable he was to that Nuggets team, that's a big loss. Again, you obviously still have the best player in the world in Nikola Jokic, so you're going to be fine to an extent. But when you look about how crowded the top of the West is and how much better some of the teams got, Dallas got better, Phoenix got better, OKC got better. I think Minnesota, just based off Anthony Edwards' development alone, is going to get better. When you look at how competitive it is, when you look at how crowded it is at the top and how stacked it is at the top, you can't, losing ground in any shape or form, like even just losing a little bit of ground, like losing a guy like KCP, like you can't afford to go backwards even just a minuscule step. And Denver unfortunately went backwards with this move. And when you look at how crowded the West was, like that's like the little opening that other teams need to just jump over them in the hierarchy. And so to do that, like 1 year removed after a championship, and just after, yes, they obviously lost Game 7 at home to Minnesota, but they were up 20 in that game. They could have easily won that game, and then who knows what happens against Dallas and beyond. But it just, like, it was a mind-boggling move considering how close they were to making the conference finals. They won the championship just 2 years ago. Nikola Jokic still in his prime, to not try and maximize his prime by bringing in this guy who is clearly such a valuable piece, and to not really replace him in any significant way, or to not really get any assets back from him in what really just felt like a penny pinching move from the Nuggets organization, which is really unfortunate. That just sucked to see. And I know Denver fans are pretty upset about that. So those are my three teams for losers of the offseason. What are yours? Let me know in the comments, and see you next video. Peace.